the ripple effect of kindness. There's small gestures.
It's something this entire world needs. It's just some kindness. I have to live in that experience. And most of the time when I came out of a room, I didn't know what I said, but I felt better.
An advanced, present, compassionate, curious. You've used so many amazing words. Hi, I'm Jim Fielding. Welcome to Ask for an Answer. Hello, kind and curious and talented human beings. Welcome to another episode of Ask for an Answer with Jim Fielding. I am thrilled, as always, that you have joined us today, whether you're joining us listening or joining us viewing. It's always nice to be in community and conversation with you. And I've brought you a really good guest today. Timothy Hunter Mathews is joining us. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I'm going to tell you first, like how we met, because I love, as I get deeper and deeper into this series of podcasts, this is another LinkedIn connection. I'm always saying that to people, like, don't underestimate those LinkedIn connections that come through and those comments. And I will say Timothy and I bonded over kindness is what I'm going to say. I think you might have commented on one of my posts first, or I might have commented on one of yours. Yeah. And we just started talking back and forth, and then we took it off the LinkedIn platform. Thank you, LinkedIn, and have had a couple of meetings. And I'm just so thrilled you're here today. And this is going to be such a great episode about storytelling and kindness and connecting in this crazy world in a virtual way. So welcome, Timothy.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Jim.
It's so nice to have you here.
I was looking forward to this for the whole week, honestly.
Yeah. I moved him a couple times too, audience. He's been very flexible.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I would say that in my real life, I'm an instructional designer. So I am into writing and telling stories. Typically, those are just corporate stories, which are kind of boring. Within that range of my office, I'm also an employee resource group leader. And I created a ERG called the Mind and Fitness Cafe, where we help the whole body experience of the different employees. We have over 100 members in our group. We talk about things that go all the way from grief, which I'm a grief counselor at my church, the care minister. So it's right in my wheelhouse and deep understanding in that, all the way to meditative breathing. So we hit all the different stuff. And I find that to be a real important component of life. And it's a connection that we all need to have. Excuse me. And well before that, growing up, I learned about connection and kindness from my parents. When my friends would come over, the first thing my mom would ask them is if they were hungry. So it was almost always, have you eaten? And then she would say, how are you doing? So food was always real important there. And it was something that people remember. I've had friends who would show up after college. We would meet each other somewhere, and they're like, your mom gave me pie. It's impactful, and it works really well. My father was a respiratory therapist, and he was a professor of respiratory therapy at KU Med. And he also would go on trips. And whenever he would go on a trip, if he saw another traveling person alone eating, he would invite them to have dinner with him. And now we have international friends because of that. So it's a moment of kindness. And so I am the cook at home, and all my neighbors know that if they're feeling down, I will most probably try to make them soup, because that's my go-to.
I love that it was both sides. Your mom and dad both had kindness at their core.
Oh, yeah.
But it manifested in different ways. I love the traveling, don't ever eat alone. That's kind of lovely and brilliant.
No, I think it's great. And I think that's something that is easily done.
So easily done, but people don't do it. Like some of this. Well, and I also think, like, I remember being a kid going to friend's house and the snack, like, we kind of knew the houses where the snacks were better or not. You know what I mean? Like, I was probably too large of a kid, but I was very aware of who had kind of the unhealthy snacks versus who had the healthy snacks.
My mom would time it just right for my friends, where she's making spaghetti sauce and she would just happen to have the bottle of red wine and pouring it into the sauce, and saying who's staying for dinner, which it's going to burn out the alcohol. You're just
yeah. She's not.
Yeah, but we didn't know.
Yeah, we're not arresting your mother.
Yeah,
no. I mean, no, but I mean that. I love that.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that those are, and to have people come up and say to you they remember those memories, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ripple effect you and I talked about before, and I talk about all the time, the ripple effect of kindness and just these small, that's the other thing is like, there's small gestures. They don't have to be grand gestures. They're, just small, consistent gestures that grow over time and create this legacy.
Yeah, I want everyone to think about the idea of a big thing for me is relational kindness. And it's being kind to yourself first, because there's no one closer than you. You're also your worst critic, but you can be your best supporter if you craft it and think about it that way. And then you have people who are one handshake away. Those are your family and your friends. They're the people that if you walk into a room and you see them and you can tell something's off, I need to talk to them, I need to say something, you take the time to do it. And then there's people who are two handshakes away. So these are the folks that I walk my dog on the street. I know their dog's name, but I don't know their name. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about
the two handshake. There's a lot of those. There's a lot.
It's people I want to get closer to and get to know better. And I've done a pretty good job of doing that in my new neighborhood. And then there's people who are 3+. Those are the folks that you see in the grocery store. You don't know them. If you saw them yesterday, you wouldn't know them today. But I love the idea in a grocery store where you're in a line full of grocery cart, right? Your grocery cart is full. And you can just look over and see what's in their cart and talk about stuff in their cart. You can start a conversation. And I found out, for instance, from some German guys in Aldi that the German Aldis are bigger and better than the American Aldi. I would have known that. I'm in Arizona, so I helped them. I told them, you have to go to the Grand Canyon, obviously, but go to Sedona, go to this store, go to this restaurant. There's a store there that has my book, The Night Before Palmas. It's called Feliz Navidad, Sedona. And it's about my two dogs, and they learn about kindness from Santa Claus. And it's Christmas based, so it fits well in Feliz Navidad. And there's also a little ornament that I created for it too. But
oh my God, I love that.
I love the idea of being able to just reach out to somebody and acknowledge their presence, talk about something they're interested in. Everybody likes to talk about themselves, so that's always a good topic, and I think it's something this entire world needs. It's just some kindness.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, and I love the levels of kindness, the first handshake, second handshake, third handshake. That's such a great picture in my mind. And just, those third handshake people, I think a lot about grocery stores, drugstores, right? And it's just that even if you're not comfortable enough to verbally engage, like what you explained, just nodding and smiling at people and acknowledging their presence can brighten people's days and can have big ripple effects. And when you and I were talking, I was laughing because, I lived in California for a long time. And I think being from the Midwest, we were always smiling and making eye contact. But in LA, that wasn't really a thing. That people were always like, I think they thought that I was like coming after them or something, or I was going to ask them for something or sell them something. And I would constantly have people just kind of, you could almost tell, I almost could tell the transplants, because the transplants from other places were like kind of getting it, and I'd get the smile and nod back, versus the natives who, and I'm not saying in Los Angeles, I'm not saying you're unkind. People are going to think I'm saying they're unkind. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like culturally it was different. And I learned that after living there, but I never changed. I would always walk down the sidewalks smiling and
yeah,
nodding and acknowledging people. I mean, that's just the way I was.
I grew up in Kansas. When we were 8, we moved from Connecticut, Massachusetts area to Kansas. Met my wife there, and then we decided we wanted to go to New York. So we spent 4 years and lived in New York, an hour out of the city. We were like an hour north and an hour from West Point. So we weren't upstate, but all my coworkers were like, "Oh, you're upstate," which the state of New York is very large. So
I know, but I think upstate for many people is just anything outside of the city.
Yeah,
right.
I noticed the same thing. The people in New York, you are in the city, you want to get somewhere, people are gawking, the tourists, and you're like, get out of my way, And the Midwest in me, I was like, I didn't like that feeling, but I got there eventually. After about the third year, I was more a typical New Yorker. And then we moved back to Kansas, and now we moved over to Arizona, and Arizona is a lot of transplant. So we get a lot of California, lots of people from the Northwest, from those states. And then the weirdos like me from Kansas that we went through 4 states to get here.
You get the sun seekers. Yeah. My family lives in Arizona, and I love visiting them, but it really is people from I call them the sun seekers. They're from all over.
Oh yeah.
And the desert lifestyle. People like that desert lifestyle.
I'm really enjoying it, except for the 120-degree summers. But we do what we did in Kansas in the winter. We just didn't go outside.
It's a dry heat, Timothy. Timothy, it's a dry heat. That's what you always tell those of us that are like, it's so hot. It's like, it's a dry heat.
After 110, it's just hot.
Yeah, like it's like 110 plus. Like there's really does not matter what the degrees
it's still
are.
hot.
It's amazing. Yeah. So tell me, let's talk about the writing. I want to talk about the writing. I want to talk about the care minister, because I think that's so interesting too. So let's go there first. Like, how did you become a care minister in your church? I think that's an interesting story.
Several years ago, I lost my father, and it hit me in a way that I didn't expect it to. And this is true of grief. It's different for every person, and it's also different for every experience that person has.
Yes.
And so I noticed, and my boss noticed, that I was like just checked out. I was there, but I wasn't there.
Not present.
Yeah, and then the next day I have to look at my emails, make sure I didn't send an email out that I was unaware of, or to a client and I should have.
Remember, right? Right. You can't remember.
I was not present in those ways. And I told my sister once when we were walking that oh gosh, there are days that I don't remember. I know I logged in and I logged out, and I don't know what I did in between. And she couldn't grasp that. We were both good at compartmentalizing, but we're different experiences. Because I was the youngest of 3. My 2 older sisters had different experiences with my dad than I did. And I think it was a different expectation and delivery in the way that we took it in. So I didn't feel like I could talk to her about it because it was different, The church had a care group, so I went to the care group, and what they do is they have one large group where you come together, and we usually do a reading or an activity, and then we break into groups. There are specific care groups for different types of loss, and then there's men's group. They just pull the men out into our own group. Because they found out very quickly that if men and women are in the same room, the men won't talk. You just
my gosh, isn't that so? I know the men, because they have this role they think they're supposed to play.
Tough and mean, and so in this group, it is very easy for us to talk about those things. And it hit me so well, and I felt so much relief knowing that there's others who know what I'm going through. That I was like, I have to become a care minister. So I went through the process, all the different trainings, which we do on a regular basis. And it lifted me up, and it made me understand that there's things that we can sometimes never really get past. There's things that we're going to struggle with. Grief for me is a thing that sits in the back of the room. Every now and then it comes up. And by doing this care ministry, it actually helps me. So when I would go to the hospital and I would go to a person who's in the hospital and actually do a prayer with them, my first prayer is, don't let this be my words. Let it be the Holy Spirit. And if that's too much religion, I understand. I have to live in that experience. And most of the time when I came out of a room, I didn't know what I said, but I felt better. And the first time
But that tells me how present
Yeah.
you are. That tells me that you are so in that moment and so connected with that person at that time that you're not even, it's almost like you're unconscious, subconscious. I'm not sure what the right word is, but you're there and you're so in the moment and you're giving all that energy, that caregiving, that you don't make the memory. I think that's fascinating.
And the odd thing is that I have scripted prayers that I would write out and prepare myself. They're not, it's not some download from somewhere else. These are my own words, knowing their situation. Technique. So it's specific to that. There's specific verses that I kind of know. I know where to find it in the Bible. I don't have them all memorized, but I know how to get to those. And I also know how to make the connection across. But afterward, I'm like, did I even do that? I don't remember if I did that. But
so, okay, how long have you been doing this now?
Oh my gosh. Probably close to 15 years now.
Wow. And does it ever get overwhelming or is it always healing?
I've had to take a break. 2 years ago in March, I lost my dog, Lily Rose, and that devastated me.
We're going to talk about that because that's part of the other story.
Yeah, that's part of my other story part. It was the most difficult thing because she was just pure kindness, pure care. She was a rescue, and she knew I was the person for her, and I think she knew that she had a lot to teach me. And
you changed her life.
Oh, we changed both our lives. Yeah. And this month is actually our anniversary for when we got her. So our gotcha day is in 2 weeks. So these 2 months are really heavy in feeling. And so the part of the care ministry is for us to acknowledge that I'm really heavy in this feeling. I can't emotionally do it. So we let other people do those things. There's also
because you can't be emotionally available.
Yeah, and I don't want to just type or call and go through motions, because going through motions is entirely insincere, and that's not how help comes. There are times when it's like I can't do that, or we'll look at a case and say, this is really, really close to what I went through. And sometimes that's great. I can help them through that. Other times I'm like, I can't help this person. And I know there's other people who can help them better because they're not, they have more time space between, or it's a different environment. So
100%.
It's an awareness, which is actually one of the first things you want to be when you're trying to be kind, is aware.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I was going to say it takes a tremendous, there's so much it says about you that you have this tremendous amount of empathy and compassion, but you also have this tremendous amount of self-awareness, to your point. And that, like, measuring your gauge of emotional capability, I think is just so wise. I mean, it's interesting to me because, to your point, people process grief so differently. You and I talked about this. I lost my dad. We're on 14 years now, and maybe 14 years in November. Rather suddenly, because it was pancreatic cancer and it was 6 weeks from diagnosis to death. From the people you've worked with in your own path. For me, I didn't deal with the grief immediately because I was also the executor of the estate, and I always say to people that, at that point in my life, I probably would have hired a death concierge, which I know is a horrible name. But when you lose somebody and you're the executor and you're in charge of the will and you're in charge of the insurance and all that kind of stuff, there's the business side of death, and then there's the emotional side of death. And someday maybe I'll still start. I'm sure there's people out there that do this, but I was like, I would have paid somebody to help me on the business side of death so I could have been more in my emotions. And I was, I was in here, they were in Arizona. I had been in Arizona for about 3 of the 6 weeks of his diagnosis. I had left, he passed away. Then I had to turn around and come back. And my first week there was really kind of the business part. And then it was okay, it's time for his memorial service and all of that. And I've got to write the eulogy. And my brother-in-law, sadly, had lost his father to the same disease. So my sister's father-in-law And he said to me the day of the memorial service, even though I had been practicing and I had everything written out, he said, if you can't get through it, make sure it's written out. If you can't get through it, I'll step up and finish reading your
How
words.
wonderful.
And I was like, oh, come on, Brian, I'm not going to need that. Like, I literally was like, I'm prepared. And it was really interesting because when the service was going, I hit a couple parts where, I lost my breath a little bit. I had to gulp. And I remember Brian kind of like rising from his seat. And I would just like hold up my hand and be like, no, I'm going to be okay. Thank you. I'm going to be okay. And I got through it. But I think it's so interesting in the work you did because I was living in Chicago at this time. When I got back to Chicago, I found a men's grieving group because I needed to process it. And I had been bottling it up and compartmentalizing it and, having all these questions and not a crisis of faith or anything, but just having a lot of questions and feeling like he had been taken too young and, it was so abrupt. And it was odd for me because so he died in November. I really started the grief group kind of January-ish. My worst moment, and you probably know this from some of the people you work with, was Father's Day, that first Father's Day. And I lost it in like a Walgreens card section because it was like all the Father's Day cards. And I realized it was the first time in my life that I didn't need a Father's Day card. And that was probably my biggest grief moment. And, just had to kind of sit down on the floor in the card section and cry and process. And I gathered myself and got home. But it was just so interesting to me that even though I've been going to these groups and I had a therapist too, and we were processing stuff, grief comes in such interesting ways and in unexpected moments, like where you think you got it together and then boom, it just hits you. So thank you for doing that work.
Oh, absolutely. And
that is a calling.
It's I would say for anybody who is going through it, the first year usually, this sounds weird, is usually the hardest, but it's also the easiest because you prepare for things. I know, like, my birthday and my dad's birthday are one day apart, so I knew that was going to be just a crap fest. I just that wasn't going to be, and it took me a long time to celebrate my birthday after it. But I knew that Christmas was coming. I knew Easter was coming, so I prepared for it. 2 or 3 years later, you forget to prepare, and something will come up. It's painful because you're just like you said. My dad was allergic to coconut. I'm walking through the grocery store. I see a bag of coconut, and it hit me. And I'm like, why? Why? I mean, I don't even eat coconut. So why was that important for my mind to say, think about your dad? And the people around me thought I was really weird because I started to shake when I'm looking at coconut. It comes at you in the oddest ways. And I think that's real important for everything in our lives to remember that we don't know anything about anyone. I've seen the pictures of the iceberg where we know this much of somebody, and there's this.
Yes.
And while that's, very pedantic, but it's true, you don't know.
It's true.
When I'm out on the street and I see somebody and I wave to them and smile, they don't wave back and smile at me. They may be going through something really hard.
Yeah. It's like, I love that. Don't make assumptions. Don't judge.
Yeah.
I think I learned, it took me a long time to be able to say this. I mean, like, he's been gone 14 years, but in a weird way, probably about 4 or 5 years in, I learned that he had gone because he had to teach me a lesson, right? And the lesson that he taught me was life is short and don't take anything for granted, because he had been a relatively healthy man up until this diagnosis. And again, I felt at 72 that was young. I felt like not saying it's ever the right time to die, but we had lost my grandmother at 102, and in a weird way, you're kind of like, okay. And I remember, I should laugh about death, but you'll laugh, Timothy, because I remember she died. She had been on her own and she was like 100 and a half. And then she was in a care facility, but like an independent facility. She died in the hospital in her sleep. And I remember we were kind of all crying and grieving. And we were like, doctor, what happened? And he literally looked at us in like the most ironic face. It's like, she was 102 years old. Like her heart was 102. Her lungs were 102. She had a good life, almost like he wasn't unsympathetic, but it was like we were looking for some major answer. And he's like, she was done, right? Like her time on earth was done. And I learned a lot from that one as well. So we're going to stay in grief for a little bit, but then we're going to get over to the book. But so the pet grief, the pet grief really, it kind of created a new path for you, right? The way you were dealing, right? So you told us the story of losing her. You said it was 2 years ago?
2 years ago in March, rather.
Wow. But then share with our viewers and our listeners, like what path that opened up. Because I find this fascinating.
I've been a writer for a long time. In fact, growing up, I have written all sorts of stories. I was looking for a way for me to capture the kindness that Lily Rose was. So when we were at the rescue, we were looking at these little tiny Shih Tzu poodles because my other dog, Daisy May, is a Shih Tzu.
I love these names.
They're the best.
Lily Rose, Daisy May.
Little Country Girls is the reason why we did it that way.
Yeah.
And Lily comes around. Her name was Matilda at the time. She comes up to my leg and taps my leg. So I gave her some head rubs on both hands and the ears and all the way down. Apparently that wasn't enough for her. So she tapped my leg again. So I gave her more head rubs. And then she did this little dance where she'd like wiggle her butt. And I gave her one more head rub. She apparently had enough of that. So she jumped up to my lap and she came right up here and put her head down. And I heard her let out this little puff that to me was like my entire back life, all my history, all the past is gone. And this guy's going to take care of me. And then she started snoring like an old man. It was just loud, just vibrating.
Did they tell you how old she was? Did they have an estimate?
They were thinking like 6 or 7 is what they were thinking.
Interesting. So she had a life.
She was used at a dog breeding place. So she had several litters. Her teeth were bad. Her health was not that great.
Wow.
She was
but
quite
she
skinny.
picked you.
She did.
She picked
She did.
you.
She jumped over past all the little puppies on my lap and just fell asleep. When my wife looked over, she saw Lily laying there and knew it was over. Like, this is the dog. And so we have a picture of her. I don't know if this is even going to come through, but this is our rescue day. That's our gotcha day with Lily. And she looked scared. I mean, she had a lot going on. So the trust was something we had.
How long did it take to build the trust?
At first it was a lot of running. I'd get her on the leash and she would just bolt. And so I was pretty well in shape. I could keep up with her. We'd go through the neighborhood around a big park and come back. And then she realized that I would be with her for the process. She had some accidents inside the house. I would clean it up and just hold her and comfort her. And when I would put the leash around her, she would cower back. So I had to find ways to do things that are very easy with Daisy because we've had her since she was like 6 months. Lily was a lot of past. So I worked with her and she worked with me to get to that point where we had the more trust.
So beautiful.
And it was
so beautiful.
I think it was just one day where she walked really slow, took in all the different sniffs and everything, and was just like, this is really cool. We got to the very far. She's like, hey, let's run. And she bolted back home. But she met dog friends and other people, and she really completed our lives in so many different ways. When we would have a small group, we'd all sit in the living room all around, and she would pat the knees of every single person to get head rubs all the way around the circle. And then she'd go back to the people who were the better head rubbers, and then just lay in the middle and just like kind of sploof out, like, I'm so happy. And so
it's a beautiful
with
story.
her being there, it was amazing because I got to see what kindness and empathy and trust looks like. And now Daisy May,
and healing,
Daisy May's the same way.
Healing,
but the healing that she brought in was just amazing.
She healed you, but you were healing her too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. And so when it was time, which any of us as pet owners know, there comes a time where sadly, it's done. And you decided then to you had been a writer, but that's when you decided to write the book.
That's when I wrote The Night Before Promise. Well, actually, the first book I wrote was I Promise. It was a grief-stricken memoir, really. It's Lily Rose's perspective of all the things that we had gone through. And it starts with me rushing her into the vet for that final moment. And every single chapter, it starts with I promise. So it's I promise you'll laugh again. I promise you'll find peace. I promise you'll smile again. And little stories within our lifetime together. And so it's for me, it was getting me in a relationship with that grief, because I have to meld it and work with it. Hopefully for others, once I find a publisher, it'll be something that people who are going through the grief process can use. And right now, my church is looking to use it for their grief ministry and also for their pet ministry.
That's awesome. Okay, we're manifesting. I'm going to interrupt you because we're manifesting you finding a publisher, hopefully through the waves of this podcast. But I love that. I love that your church is going to use it. I mean, I think, listen, as a pet parent there was a dog in the house before I was in the house as a kid. So I've grown up as a pet brother and sister, and then a pet parent. And it's one of the hardest things. We know they have a shorter lifespan than we do. And so it's, especially when you're a dog owner, I mean, cats a little bit longer, but you've only got so long. And I think it's beautiful that I love that I promise you got that story down. And it's another kind of, it's great. I mean, it feels different than it did with my dad. Like I remember my last dog I put down, it feels different, but it's still a process, and it's something we need to talk. And I love that you, through the magic of your talent of writing and your kind heart and your caregiving and all that, you're able to, package that into something that can be so useful for other people.
And Jim,
so do you only have Daisy May now, or did you get another dog?
We're only going to get you have Daisy May because she's 13 or thereabouts. She's an old lady. So bringing in a new dog would be difficult. We do small dog pet sitting. So we'll have dogs come in for a week or 2 or 3 days. And she deals with it. Usually she just kind of lays on the ground and like, leave me alone.
But that's nice. That's a way to get that energy. Yeah,
a little bit different energy. And, it's nice to get some, a little extra.
You'd be good fosters too.
I would be a foster failure because I would not ever want to let him go. So I'm trying to.
You'd end up having. You'd be like, oh God, there's that couple with 14 dogs.
Yeah. And especially if it was a miniature schnauzer, I'd forget it. When I'm walking and I see a miniature schnauzer, I will run over there. I'm like a child seeing the ice cream cart.
Did you have those as a kid? Like, why that breed?
You know what? Lily Rose chose us. So I had no idea.
Yeah, that's why.
I had a dog that I've had a couple of dogs. One was kind of a mutt named Lady, and she gave birth underneath our kitchen table, and I was the only one that was allowed to touch the dogs. If I would give I would give the puppies over to my dad so he could measure and do all that other stuff, and she would growl at him. I'd get the dog back and cuddle it, and then I'd give it back to Mama. It was weird, but it's one of the ways that it works. For your listeners, if you don't have pets, you never lost a pet, hearing someone say that pet loss is more difficult than human loss, there's some context to that. So for Jim and for myself, with our fathers, we have a deep history of background. It's like luggage that you didn't want to bring on the trip, but it's there. And there's a lot of different things to unpack. There's positive, good things. There's also unspoken.
You are such a writer.
Oh,
you are such a writer.
You. There's a lot of unspoken, right? My dad hardly ever said he loved me. It just wasn't what he did. I would get handshakes at night to go to bed as opposed to a hug, or that's just his way. With the dogs, with cats, with any pet, it's pure love, right? There's no back end. I have to bring this along and think about, well, I did love my father. There's a but. There were times when he didn't join Boy Scouts because for whatever reason, and it first annoyed me, and then I'm like, well, that means he's not there with me, being him, with all the other kids, and making my life difficult there. But he missed Boy Scouts. I mean, it was disappointing for both of us. I didn't miss anything with Lily, and she didn't miss anything with me. She went 100% deep into, I'm going to love this guy.
Amazing.
And I'm going to love his wife. I'm going to love my sissy Daisy May as much as she annoys me. And you could just feel it and you can see it. So I think it's that depth of background, and there's no contrary feelings when it comes to pets.
I mean, literally, Timothy, you are such a good writer. I mean, the whole unpacking the suitcase. I mean, what you just described, and you and I talked about this before, but it's like, to me, my father and I were great together, but there was a certain amount of conditional love in that relationship. And I feel, as a pet owner my entire life, I feel pets are unconditional love. And it does not mean that there's not times that you're not upset with them or they're upset with you, or, when they have an accident in the house, I'm kind of like you, like I kind of almost blame myself that I wasn't paying attention. But if they, I have a wire fox terrier, I told you, who's 11 years old and still is a puppy and still gets in the trash and tears stuff up. That kind of drives me nuts. Right. And I might scold her and she might have a moment, like a timeout, but that unconditional love, that they're at the back door every time you walk in from the garage. Right. And that feeling, yeah, I mean, and I think most pet parents understand that. And I'm not saying everybody should be a pet parent. I mean, I think it's a choice. You and I were talking about it. It limits you a little bit on travel, and, especially with dogs, you've got to be home to feed them and they have to be let out and all that kind of stuff. But I would not trade, my pet experiences for anything in the world. I mean, you're also making me, like, I've teared up more in this podcast, I think, than I ever have in a podcast, by the way. You're making me also think one of the things that now I think my Instagram algorithm knows that I like pets, because one of the reels I keep getting, I'm getting reels now of these shelters where the pets pick the owner. Have you seen those, where it's like they open the door and the dog runs out and goes up and down and smells and ends up in somebody's lap? Like, those videos, when I'm down, I literally will show me those, I can't remember what they call them. There's a certain name for that kind of shelter. It's like Dog's Choice Shelter or something, you know what I'm saying? But it's just, yeah, those are so heartwarming. And when we're having a rough day, I'll go looking for those. I'll go looking for those kind of videos, because, yeah, and we were, my husband and I were just having the conversation, because we've got soon to be 8 and 11-year-olds. And I think we also were like, you were like, we don't want a third dog. It's not time to bring a dog in. We were talking about the 8-year-old. How is she going to handle it when the older one goes? Because we got her as a puppy, and even though the younger one is the big English lab, she's like the puppy compared to the wire fox terrier. The wire fox terrier is the alpha. There's no doubt about it. And is the mama. They're both girls. And, it's just, yeah, we're like, but then we're like, okay, we're not going to deal with it. She's healthy.
I don't want to think that way.
We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it.
Our neighbor came and picked up Daisy and brought her to the vet. so she could be there with Lily in her last moments.
Oh my God,
and
I
Daisy
love that.
she knew this was, even when she came into the vet, she wasn't whimpering and anything of that sort, which she always does. When we come even close to the like within a mile of the vet, she freaks out. But she just knew. And then a lot of calm,
so beautiful,
awareness. There's something about pets that they are totally aware of you and what your need is at that moment. And
they're very intuitive, very intuitive.
It's like, if I'm walking down the street and my Daisy doesn't like somebody, I know they're not a good person.
Yeah.
I will just 100% without a doubt.
They get that very specific, almost growl. And then the hair stands up on the back of my neck because I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That's not a good sound. I mean, you're absolutely right.
She stands and protects in front of us. So she'll make her body as big in front and kind of posture to the person.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Talk to me about writing, because you have more books in you, I know. So do you think this, right now it's kind of a side hustle. You have your full-time job. I mean, but what's your vision on the writing side? More and more, but like a series of books like this, or what's your vision on the writing
side? My hope is that I can get picked up by, Doubleday or Simon Schuster or some big publishing company to say, keep manifesting. Just write. And I've read enough of on writing books, like with Stephen King's On Writing, and Peck has a great one about writing about fiction. So I have that base knowledge from them, but it comes from personal experience in some ways. So I have probably 4 other books with Daisy and Lily in mind that I have in various parts of my computer. And then I just get these random thoughts that come to my mind. So I have a book that I wrote because my wife took a picture of hot air balloons, because we get hot air balloons in New Mexico and Arizona. Yeah, exactly. And for some reason I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we had a story about kids in the basket and they flew all the way to the moon and they pulled out cheese from the moon and they came back, and then what if they took rainbows and they used rainbows to do hopscotch? I mean, just my brain works very weird. So I wrote out about 5 different types of different what if, and it's based off of children's imagination. So if children could imagine that they could go to the moon, they could do it in the hot air balloon. And it was fun to write. And so I'm going through the edit process on that. I think there's more that I can put into it. I'm also writing a book that is more adult, that has to do with a person from Kansas, since I came from Kansas, moves to New York to work in a financial district, which I actually did in Kansas City, but not in New York. And she gets into some weird thing with Croatian immigrants and the FBI. And so it's drawn out into this, it's kind of a cool story. I love the way it's going, because I have a master's in history about Yugoslavia in World War I and World War II, how the country came together, fell apart, and big politics. Really boring stuff if you're not into history. And so I brought that into the story. I worked at Smith Barney for a year and found out I'm not a good financial person. So I brought that into it as well. Every story you write has something about you. So there's going to be a bleed. I mean, listen, I was going to say, you are a role model for write what you know. I mean, seriously. Otherwise, you don't know what to write. But I love how you can fictionalize it then. Like you make it interesting and compelling. I mean, you have, I was going to say, you have like, some historical references and context and facts, but then I think my next book is going to be actually about kindness. I'm doing a blog on Substack called The Gentle Work of Quiet Kindness. And make sure I get that right. And it's a story. Gentle Work of Quiet Kindness. It's a story about relational kindness and a gentleman named Abraham who's in New York City, who just sees and he talks about relational kindness and how has neighbors that he doesn't know, and so he goes and intentionally tries to meet them. and his coworkers look like they're a little down, and I didn't talk to them yesterday when they were down, so I have to go back and really connect back to them. And for me, this is going to become hopefully a TED Talk, and talk about how kindness is something that we can do on a regular basis. And I have a talk in 2 months that I'm going to be doing about how kindness is important for instructional designers in business. Because when I come in to create a solution for training, I have to have a relationship. So I have to be with the subject matter experts. And the only way to do that is to be open, to be curious, to have some empathy. And it works so much better. Your life is so much more complete.
You're talking about being human.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Like you're talking about being an advanced, present, compassionate, curious. You've used so many amazing words. In the show notes and all that, we will make sure they know how to contact you. I'm so thrilled that we're connected now and that we get to talk about kindness and follow each other's journey. I love that we both are so passionate about kindness, coming at it from different ways, but we're both passionate about kindness in our souls.
I would say my website, thunterbooks.com, would be a great place to land, because you can see pictures of the amazing Valeria is my illustrator. She did an amazing job.
Yeah, it's beautiful, by the way. I agree. T Hunter people, Books. It's easy. T Hunter, Hunter books.
Yep, that was my nickname my mom gave me, was T Hunter. And there's my kindness challenges on there too, where you can go and get a calendar for 28 days. And every day there's 2 different things you can do. You can be kind to yourself and be kind to someone else. And there's also a blank one if you want to make your own. That's cool. I would just say, if you're doing it, put it on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever, and just say, look, I'm doing this kindness challenge, and it's helped me. It's helped my kids. I make some very specific to kids. My favorite thing to do is to write down something nice that you did and something nice that someone else did for you, put it in a jar, and then open it up at the end of the month and read all these good things you did, because you're a good person.
You have given so many. I cannot wait to go back, and when we're working on this episode and editing, you've given so many great little pearls of wisdom. I want to make sure that we share them all. I'm still back on first, second, third handshake. My head is blown, but thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your kindness and being in community and conversation with us. And I'm just so honored that I get to be in your life now and watch your journey. And there was a lot of manifestations we put out there. So I'm hoping that we're going to manifest. And
well, I'll check my inbox
keep going,
to see if any inbox.
Yeah. Like, did you get 3 offers? We'll find out when this comes out. When this episode comes out, we'll see if offers come flying in. But and regardless of what happens with that, you and I talked about it. I mean, you are making such a difference in the world. And I think that's what really, really matters in the long run.
I linked first thing I do on LinkedIn is I put in another kindness thing. I did a kindness staircase, not staircase, ladder, a kindness ladder. I created that.
Kindness ladder. I saw that. I saw it.
So that's a new thing.
No, but I think that's the thing. And the thing I will tell you, and because you've been on the author journey too, is it will come back to you in really unexpected ways. And all of a sudden somebody will email you or somebody will send you a DM on LinkedIn and tell you some story of, they saw an article you wrote or your book or, a Substack or whatever. And it's amazing. And it can be very random, but what we have to understand, and I think we've talked about it with grief and we've talked about it with writing, there is a pattern underneath it all. There is a pattern. And if you are consistent, and we've talked about it, it's like these small, consistent moves forward that all of a sudden start to multiply and amplify and have that ripple effect. And then all of a sudden it comes back to you and you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's because of something I did 2 years ago or something I did 18 months ago. And I love that part of my life, that I'm in this part of my life right now. And the spontaneity and kind of randomness of it, but also that there's a pattern underneath.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't give
It's
up
good for you.
anything, any of the bad things I've gone through, because it's
No, you
got me
need
to
them.
where I
You need
am
them.
in the
It's
perspective
the
that I have.
whole picture. And if we've got it, just like we're talking about dogs, pets loving us unconditionally, you got to accept yourself
Yeah.
unconditionally, because all of that, the good, the bad, the scars, the traumas, the memories, it's all part of it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.
I can't wait to get this out in the world. We'll talk
This will
soon.
be great. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Ask for an Answer. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't just nod and move on. Take one idea, one question, one uncomfortable and bring it into your next meeting, your next one-on-one, or your next big decision. That's how this becomes a practice, not just a podcast. If you're leading a team, a classroom, a company, or just your own next chapter, you don't have to have it all figured out. You do have to be willing to listen, to ask better questions, and to create the kind of safety where people will actually tell you what they see. If this episode was useful, share it with someone who's in the arena with you. And if you want more tools, stories, and real talk leadership moments, make sure you follow the show and leave a review so others can find us. I'm Jim Fielding. Thank you for being here, for leading with less armor and more intention. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep asking for an answer.